Hello there, my name is Peter. We're going to be doing a presentation about building a website with purpose in mind. This is going to be a fairly lengthy presentation, so bear with me, grab a coffee. We're going to go over some really important points before you dive into the web development and actually put together a website for your business. We're going to be covering purpose, ownership, budget, and timeline. So let's get into it. So the plan for our presentation here today is the introduction, understanding web development landscape, how complex it has become, and why you really need to understand the landscape of web development world before you're going to start looking for that web developer. The purpose, understanding the purpose of your website in relation to the market and why you need that website. That is actually really important. Ownership. Who actually owns your website? You might think that you have a website, you paid for it, you own it. That's not exactly the case. There could actually be multiple people and multiple entities that would own your website. By entities, I mean not ghosts or spirits. I'm talking about LLCs and C corps. You can call them ghosts in a way. That would have ownership of your website, and we'll go over it, how that happens. Budget. Budget, self-explanatory, different ways to estimate the price of the projects, and you'll probably be surprised that there are no standards for pricing a website. There are guidelines, but some of them are actually really interesting. Maintenance, dark secrets of not so dark web, quite intriguing, but that's the case. There is some really bad practice when it comes to maintenance of websites. We're also going to touch on timeline. How long would it take for you to build a website? What's reasonable, what's not reasonable? And in the completion stage, I'm going to lay out step-by-step instruction that will technically be good for you to follow if you want to complete your website on a timely manner and for you to actually be successful. So before we dive into it, I want to just quickly recap who I am. Maybe some of you know me, maybe others don't. I have a YouTube channel. I teach web development on YouTube. I also have a web development agency that was originally started in the year 2000 by my parents, and I took over the business, and now we're building high-end, high-quality websites for a lot of customers. So we've been at it for many years. We started with basic HTML websites, even before the mobile-friendly stuff was around. So we've been around the block, seen the transformation of the entire industry over this time, and it's fascinating how things have changed. All right, so introduction. As you can see, we have hazard ahead because there is hazard ahead. In terms of the web development world and the way that things have shifted and molded, before it was fairly simple. People would be building standard HTML websites. If you remember back in the days when you would click on a page, it would look really boring. Usually no pictures or one or two pictures in the corner, and then you would have big white space, and then you would have text. I remember those times. So that has shifted, and we started with basic HTML websites back in the days. Then we did some styled content, so plain small websites were boring. They added styles, CSS, so that content was a little bit more interesting. We could do some structures with it. Then we moved on dynamic content. This is really PHP and being able to grab information from different locations. So this is where the WordPress was born and all of the fun stuff. Content management systems. And that really has led us into today's day and age when do-it-yourself builders and the power to build a website yourself has really propelled into the market, and the market basically exploded. It exploded with web developers, web development agencies. It It has exploded with people trying to build websites themselves. It has also exploded with do-it-yourself builders, and there's thousands of builders, and they're competing against each other. And there are builders that are built by other countries. There's US-based builders, there's European builders. I mean, there's just so many. And because we have such a diverse market of builders, which is really doesn't have boundaries to any one country, that spans pretty much the entire globe, the industry has exploded with people trying to get online, people trying to make money, and you name it. It has become Wild West. Now there's also, to add to this complexity of multiple do-it-yourself builders and people not needing to know programming languages anymore, we also have an ancient battle that has started with Microsoft versus open source. So Microsoft is trying to push their web development tools, which you've got to sign up for, pay monthly membership to use, and then you can use Microsoft.NET to script your websites, or you can go to open source and your basic PHP, your Linux, Plesk interface, cPanel. I mean, there's a lot of different panels for open source. And this battle is really, really up and running. Microsoft is not giving up. Open source is thriving, so there is this mix that's happening. Microsoft people don't usually mix with the open source people. We're talking about the programmers and vice versa. So if you're doing Microsoft route, you'll be looking for certain grade of programmers. If you're going to go open source, that will be a different grade of programmers. Open source by far has largest amount of programmers right now, so you will find cheaper prices in open source. If you go to Microsoft, it's going to be a lot more controlled, a lot more restricted, a lot more security, and you'll have a lot less programmers. So this is something to keep in mind when you're selecting the platform. I work primarily with open source. This is what I started with, and this is what I'm still working with. On top of the open source versus Microsoft and the exploded number of builders, we also have another layer to add: hackers, spammers, bots, data sniffing, and backdoors. So these are all of the tools, methodologies, and individuals, entities that are trying to infiltrate our websites to have access to them. Why would they want to have access to websites? For several reasons. First reason is to spam website, to put links to other websites. There could be an SEO agency that is trying to optimize somebody else's website, so they need other websites where they can place their links to build backlinking. There could also be basic scammers who are just trying to get some kind of money from people that they hijack their website or hack their website. There's also spammers that would be adding their product to your website. So you would log into your website and you'll see somebody else's product advertised on your website. They also put redirects so that you would go to your website and that would redirect to somebody else's website. There's also plain simple hack attacks. So somebody had nothing to do and they would create a bot, which is basically like a program that would scavenge the internet, look for backdoors and weak spots in WordPress and other systems, and it would infiltrate those websites and just put up a bunch of junk, sometimes pornography, just for the heck of it. So that happens, and I see that happen quite a lot. The motive behind that, I'm not sure why they do that, but that happens. Backdoors are interesting in data sniffing. Sometimes they would look for credit card information by installing snippet onto the website. And also backdoors, which is really common for bad web development agencies. they would actually install a little bit of a script that's very difficult, actually pretty much impossible to detect, that will give them ability to log into the website or have control over it, even if you remove their credentials from the front end of the website. Usually those backdoors also are equipped with like termination. So if you do remove that snippet of script, they usually have a bit more script somewhere hidden behind, and it would recognize that somebody tried to get rid of their backdoor, so that would basically delete the website. So these things do happen. I've seen them quite a lot, and some of them are very difficult to find and remove. Okay, terms of service and terms of use documents. Find printed subscriptions. Before we get to this section, I want to expand just a little bit more about the hackers. Your website is a product, and we can back it up, but there is no undo button. If the website gets hacked and if we don't have a proper backup of the website, your website is gone. Unlike Microsoft Word, which retains history, a website is not like that. You cannot just click undo button. You can lose the entire website altogether without any way to recover it. So this is really important, and there's ways how we back things up to prevent potential hacks, and if they do occur, then we have a means to restore the website. Okay, terms of service and terms of documents, fine print and subscriptions. This is another really complex area that we need to understand in order to understand the landscape of the web development world. Because there are so many people now with the open source and with explosion of do-it-yourself builders, everybody's writing scripts. Developers, they found a niche for them to write programs that non-developers would be able to use. So each one of those programs has usually subscription base, has license to it, and it has terms of use and a lot of fine print. In order for you to understand who and how controls different portions of now your website, because usually websites nowadays are built with a ton of different add-ons and different additional scripts, because it expedites the delivery time, you've got to understand that you're bound by the terms of other people and other developers and other companies and entities. So if you were to combine an average basic one-page website terms of service of different programs and different images that are used and all sorts of different programs that were brought together to put together that tiny website, it's probably going to be a 1,000-page book. There's going to be so much text that's going to be impossible to read through it. So yeah, terms of service of the website now becomes really big. I'm talking about the terms of service that would govern supposedly your website. As you can see, the ownership question now comes about, because what is really your website? What's in that website really yours? So this is not philosophical question. This is true question, practical question, and we'll get to that in the next slide. All right, so we talked about the complexities of the world that we live in, because we have Wild West with web development. We have an exploding market of do-it-yourself developers. We talked about it already. And large number of developers that now can put together websites without really understanding scripting language. Well, they don't really need to know HTML, they don't need to know CSS, they don't need to know PHP, they don't need to know JavaScript, they can just drag and drop things into place. You've got a ton of people heading into this marketplace. There's a lot of money to be made because web development was complicated. There was a huge need for websites, and there weren't enough developers. Now the market has exploded. Everybody's a web developer now because they want access to all of those people that want website. And the market is still hot. There's still a lot of individuals that need websites being developed. But right now, there is an oversupply of developers, but they're not true web developers that actually know scripting language. They are what I call quasi-developers, or developers that don't really understand the scripting languages. They just know how to drag and drop things into place, and whenever things go wrong, they don't usually know how to fix problems. When that happens, they typically run away from projects. They will say that their dog died, or they have family emergency, and they would just abandon a client and ask a client to find another developer. This happens a lot. And I'm talking about pretty much every other person that I talk to on a daily basis, new lead that would come in, they have this problem. Developers running away from them. To add to all of that, that's becoming a very big mess, as you can see. We have also globalization and fight for US market. Globalization has opened up borders, especially virtual borders, and United States is for web development is not a country, it's a market. Therefore, all of the other countries or people within all around the world that make their living on $2 a day, they really want to get after US clients, because in the United States, clients are ready to pay premium dollar for their website. And if they can convince a person to spend $1,000 on a website, they're going to be rich in the third world countries or the developing countries. That's why there is a huge influx of other people from other countries trying to get into US market. Not only the do-it-yourself builders, do-it-yourself web developers created this oversaturation. We have global saturation, specifically in United States market, because that's where everybody is heading to find clients. Freelancer platforms, Upwork, Fiverr, even Facebook groups, they all are super saturated with web developers. Some of them are knowledgeable, others are not, and it's very difficult to find a web developer because of oversaturation. There is credibility problems. It's difficult to believe a person in another country that everything will be performed to the contract, because technically they're not exactly obligated to meet contractual obligations. For you to go after them with a court order will be very difficult. And you might have tried Facebook groups sometimes, especially like web development Facebook groups. There is thousands of web developers. If you come there saying that you need a website developed, you'll get thousands of private messages. So Upwork, same thing. Fiverr, same thing. Very difficult from client's standpoint to get a developer, because there's oversaturation of them, and also for developers has become very difficult to get a client for the same reason. So there's this, it's quite reverse now. Registration and ownership mistakes and deception. So why we have deception here? Deception happens on purpose, and like there's intentional deception and there is accidental deception that happens with web development. Sometimes what happens is a web development agency would register a domain for a person, and they would also might help set up a hosting account and DNS settings. And what happens is that sometimes, actually that happens quite a lot, the website actually belongs to a web development agency, not the person that actually paid money for it. And legally, that's the case because everything's registered on a web development company. That can be done on purpose to retain the client, or it can be done accidentally because a web developer didn't know better. Either way, it's a problem. So this happens a lot. That's why we're going to be talking about this quite a lot as well. Right, we're going to speed this up a little bit because we spent quite a bit of time on the introduction, but it was really important for us to understand the scope of problems that we're facing, because if you don't know the problems, you will not be able to find solutions. This overview has provided a very good overview or vision of what is happening in the web development world right now. How to combat this and how to actually be able to get your website completed successfully. This is what I call in step in with the purpose. And by that, what I'm saying is that you need to make sure that you know exactly where you're going with your website. This is the part of purpose. Purpose is really important. A clear direction must be present to navigate the concept landscape. Must is bolded, because if you do not have clear direction with your business, chances are you're going to lose money. And the best way to lose money is by creating a website. People lose thousands of dollars on web development, and I've seen that. I've seen them go out of business, and that happens a lot. So a clear direction must be present. What do we mean by clear direction? You need to understand a couple of basic principles. First, website will not generate leads on its own. A lot of business owners think that by putting together a website they will get leads. No, you will not get leads. Unless you market your website, you will not generate any leads whatsoever. Website will not rank #1 on Google on its own. That's another misconception. People often ask me, well, will my website rank on Google? Or they assume that their website will be first on Google and they're going to get leads. No. Website is not going to rank anywhere unless there's effort put into doing that. And by effort, we're talking about search engine optimization and submitting the website to Google. That is a separate topic, very complex in itself. It has a lot of its own problems and obstacles that need to be overcome for this to work properly. Basically, if we sum this up, website will not bring you money on its own. A website is a website, which is like a business card or a flyer. If you don't bring it to your end user, it's not going to bring you any money. So remember this is important. Successful business recipe is when website comes last. And by that what I mean is that your marketing plan starts first. You test your marketing plan by creating maybe a small, tiny landing page or a single-paged website. Really inexpensive, like $850. You test it out, you get leads, you get conversions, you're making money, and then you build your website. So this process guarantees success. You are risking basically an $850 bill here, and maybe some money on marketing. But if you follow this process, start small, you're bound to be successful. Perfection is key and recipe for bankruptcy in web development world. This is a little bit of a controversial thing here. In marketing, it's really important to make sure that your message is very clear, and perfection is somewhat important because even a small word in your ads will make a world of difference in conversions. But if people get obsessed with look and feel of the website, the color of the buttons, the tiny things, they never complete their website. The website becomes something that they spend thousands of dollars on, but it never gets completed. The purpose of the website is to help run your business, and there is a rule that we always follow, that an action should serve 2 or more purposes. So we apply that to life and web development as well. That means your website needs to follow or serve 2 or more purposes. It can be a lead generation method through search engine optimization or Google Ads, but it can also be a tool where you can take your clients to and you can show them around your website and have them understand a bit more about your business, and maybe you would have portfolio page there. So you would take clients specifically to that portfolio page during a phone call. So now your website is a landing page for your Google Ads, but it's also a conversion tool. So make sure that everything is done in 2 steps, 2 or more purposes. Website should have multiple purposes. You might have an internal login system where you would be able to take people to, where they would be able to review your pricing for, I don't know, wholesale accounts. So that would be another purpose for a website. Always make sure that you have multiple purposes to anything you do. So my recommendation is to spend 20 to 30% of your budget for website development and 80% for the marketing. You'll need a lot of money for marketing. So don't spend all of your money on a website. Triple check ownership and account access permissions. Again, we're getting back again and again to the account ownership permissions, because again and again I have a lot of problems with people not owning their accounts and being locked out of their accounts. Okay, so now we have come to my favorite part, ownership of your website, domain registration. So basically your website it's not one thing that you have. It's not like one, it's not like a 2x4. For the lack of a better example, or it's not like a table. It's more like a pie that contains a lot of different ingredients in it, and all of those ingredients come together to make that product. So you can imagine if we are going to bake a pie, we might have granulated sugar that might have its own health benefits or lack thereof. There could be Crisco, which has its own trademark, and if you're going to sell that pie, you might need to disclose that you have certain ingredients and they come with their own health risks, etc. So a website is like that. It's like a lot of different ingredients come together to make it work, and without some ingredients, it will not be able to function at all. For example, domain registration, also known as registrar, is the company that registers and maintains your domain registration information. If you want a domain name, you've got to register it, but by registering a domain name, you have a name, but you don't have a website. The other part of domain registration is to be able to control your domain settings. So you might want to have an email that's connected to your domain, info@yourdomainname.com. For that, you need to have access to what's called domain administration, or DNS. It's possible to break this down. You can have a domain registered at one company, and you can have domain administration in a different company altogether. The way that it would work is basically in domain registration, you would have name servers that would point to domain administration in another company. And then you have that broken down into 2 different companies that would you would need to have access to maintain and manage. So my recommendation is to make sure that you have access to domain registration, domain administration, if it's broken down. Usually it's under one. So you would have registrar in where you would be able to administer your DNS settings. The less accounts you have, the better it is. So if you have domain registration, domain administration, and hosting account all in one location with one company, that's the best. And by one company, I don't mean one web development agency. By one company, I'm talking about, let's say, there would be a company that would do the domain registration, GoDaddy or Ionos or Namecheap. There's a lot of different companies that provide domain registration. So if you do that through a registrar, you have DNS there, you have your hosting there. That's the ideal setup. So what about hosting? What is that? Hosting is basically a server that makes things run. Hosting account is something that would be able to process scripts. So whenever a person clicks on a button on your website, website needs to, that click needs to go to the server. Server needs to understand what the user is trying to do, and then that will trigger some process. That process will run scripts, and it will bring about another page on the website. That process is being done by a hosting company. So usually domain registration is about $15 per year. Domain administration usually is part of registration. And hosting typically runs at about $15 per month, depending on the size of the hosting account. There's a lot of different variations here, but generally it's about $15 per year. Per month. So 1, 2, 3 ownerships that you need to have access to. The next item is platform license. If you're using WordPress, WordPress is an open source software, but you need to have administrative access to your WordPress account. What I commonly see is web developers giving people like a editorial access, so they cannot, so they don't actually have admin access to their WordPress account. There's other platforms, Wix, there's Squarespace, there is Webflow. There's a lot of different platforms today where you can build websites. Even Elementor, which is really a plugin, also offers now a complete solution where you can build websites. So you need to have access to the platform. And in case, for example, with Elementor, you will have access to Elementor, which would be actually hosting in that case, and you also need access to the actual WordPress. So there could be two licenses, two access points here. Plugin and software licenses. Now we're slowly diving into licenses. As my analogy already that I brought up about a website being like a pie, imagine that pie having different ingredients to which you need to have licenses for, and you actually need to renew those licenses because you keep on using them. So a website, even a basic website, might have as little as no licenses, which is almost never the case. And I've seen websites having up to 20, 30 licenses and different price points. This is where it becomes very difficult for you to really wrap your hand around this, because really it's under the web developers skill set to determine what software you need and what licenses would apply. What makes this situation is even more complex is that a web developer might have licenses already that he's using, and since they're using specific licenses, they would typically purchase large volume of licenses, or they would have one unlimited license that they can use throughout unlimited number of websites they're going to be developing. Because they're doing that, that license or that software that they've installed into your website belongs to them. It doesn't belong to you. So you might look at the website and everything looks and feels awesome, but what makes that website spin, what makes some of the modules work, could be software that you don't have license to. Well, guess what happens if you move to another web development agency? That's correct, your license gets lost because they will shut it down because they don't want to use up their record of licenses. Sometimes they have a limit to licenses. They might have 500 licenses that they can use. So they don't want to use up that quota for a person that just left their agency and they're no longer servicing that business. So they're going to basically, inside their administrative portal, for that specific software, they're going to drop your domain off the list. And your website will no longer have license for that specific software. Two things can happen. It can stop working abruptly because it's not licensed anymore, or it's not going to renew. It's definitely not going to renew in either case. So any updates to it will not happen. If a piece of software doesn't get updated, it goes out of sync with latest releases of PHP scripts. When that happens, website goes down, and it goes down very catastrophically. It cannot be recovered unless there is a good backup. But even with backup, to recover such a website becomes a challenge because we have to simulate an environment of an outdated PHP version, which becomes problematic. So you can see how license ownership is super important, and without you knowing what software and what licenses are used in your website, you will get into problems like that whenever you switch hosting companies. So you're almost stuck with a specific hosting company if they have used premium licenses, and they will use premium licenses because it's so much easier to build a website with all of the software that other people build. It's like putting it together like a Lego. If we're going to be if we're going to be building websites without external licenses and without external software, that process will drag on for years because we would have to re-engineer all of those things, and your basic website will end up costing you thousands and thousands of dollars. So licenses can be very expensive, especially if there is a lot of premium licenses that have been used on a website, a lot of premium plugins, and if you move to a different company, you want to make sure that your website is kept up to date so it doesn't fail in half a year. You're going to have to pay for those licenses. That bill can be very expensive. I've seen bills up to $300 a month for those licenses because there's a lot of premium licenses. Company that was creating that one-paged website, and yes, that was a one-paged website, they basically had a lot of really cool software that they've invested a ton of money for unlimited licenses. So yep, that's reality. You need to understand that that's the case, and speak to a web developer about this before they develop your website, so you know exactly what software, what licenses, and who's going to own those licenses. Really critical. Alright, so we're going to talk about the image artwork ownership. That's another big one. You could get in trouble if you don't have licenses to images or artwork. So my recommendation is to always use your own images if possible. If you can't buy Shutterstock, and keep those licenses and give those images to a designer. It might seem to be an overkill. Designers supposedly should be able to do that on their own. They can, they will, but the responsibility or the burden of responsibility for you not having the copyright license to an artwork is on you. So you can get in trouble for that with legal system if somebody decides to sue you. They do. They basically have robots that scan the web, and they look for images that don't have copyright attached to them. And they would send out legal papers from time to time. Alright, so we have login credentials and healthy habits of changing passwords. So whenever a website has been built, change passwords and make sure that you hold all of the login credentials in a safe place, and you know where to access them, and you know exactly who initiated or who has those keys. If it's a web developer, you know exactly the location of the credentials that need to be changed if you're moving to another web development agent. Alright, let's chat about web developer and the trusted web developer and maintenance plan. Really critical to maintain your website, because all of those plugins, all of those scripts, they need to be updated. Your website needs to be backed up, and we already examined the reasons why that needs to happen. So find a developer that you trust, and really it's all about trust in this case. You cannot really protect yourself with contracts or legal obligations. It's just near impossible. Backdoor connections and avoiding sabotage, that goes hand in hand with trusting the developer. It's possible, it's doable to do a sabotage of a business by having a backdoor connection, and I've seen that happen a lot. So again, trust your developer. Make sure that your developer is trustworthy. Sensitive data and contracts. Again, protect your sensitive data. If you need to give out a password to something, create a delegate access and remove those users once you're finished with that specific project. And protect yourself with non-disclosure contracts. Very important as well. So make sure that you're protecting yourself on all fronts whenever possible. Okay, last but not least is terms of service and understanding of what you own and what the web development company owns. Really important, because you would actually be surprised at terms of service for a web development company if you would actually read it, and if it's done correctly, and the amount of unresponsibility that they take on themselves. A web development company that is not that doesn't have that type of language within their terms of service, they're putting themselves under huge risk. We've serviced companies that generate $50,000+ a week from their website. Imagine if their website goes down while we're maintaining it. Just imagine how much money we would lose, because they could technically go after us. So it's really important for us as a web development agency is to have a very extremely robust terms of service agreement. It's actually a statement on our websites that basically limit the responsibilities, so that we're not on the hook for that money, and we do not have any type of insurances. There is no insurance for web development agency. So all of that legal responsibility is actually on the shoulders of a web development agency, unless they have an extremely well put together terms of service agreement that explicitly removes any responsibility for anything that might happen to client's website. So this is something to watch out for, and terms of service that are stated in that very extremely harsh way, that they do not take any responsibility whatsoever for anything, is actually a sign that they understand what they're doing. Web development agencies that don't really have terms of service, they're just waiting for to go bankrupt whenever they're going to have that first website with that one client that likes to sue people, that would sue them for loss of business that can go into millions of dollars, that type of lawsuit. And they would win it because I mean, a web development agency is charging $100 for maintenance. Their website disappeared, so they can sue for a lot of money. That also can be loss for future business, loss of income, loss of time. There's so many things that they can sue you for. So yeah, this is important, understanding the terms of service and understanding what you're signing up for and what the developer is signing up for. Okay, so I'm going to go a little bit faster this time. We want to wrap this up. We have a few slides to go through. All right, so budget for success. Now we're going to go into the success and how to achieve it. Nothing is more fluid or certain than the budget of the website. Commonly, the price of the website is determined by amount of money it has a potential to generate to the client. And you've read that correctly. You can read this again because this is crazy, but this is how it works. In essence, what happens is that a web development agency will look at a company, they're selling boats. They can sell a boat for thousands of dollars. Therefore, a website will be priced at $20,000–$30,000 for that website easily, because that website will be able to generate a lot of money for them. They can build exactly the same website for a cleaning business, but they're going to charge $1,000 for that website, not $20,000, and it would be built on exactly the same template. It's going to have exactly the same script. They're going to spend exactly the same amount of time and thought to both of those websites. The price point is determined by the potential to generate income to the client. It sounds crazy. You can look through it online, but this is the most common method of pricing a website. I kind of disagree with this. I think this is unfair in a way. There's a lot of argument going back and forth. I think a developer's time is certain dollars per hour, and that's what I go off by. I look at how much time it would take to put together a website. If it's a complicated project and requires more programming, then I charge more for that. But if they're selling a house versus if it's a cleaning company, I want to make sure that we're charging a fair price. But this is what happens most commonly. I'll tell you an example which is crazy. We've had a case where a client came to us. They had a $10,000 website. Well, it cost them $10,000. But in reality, that website was built on an extremely basic template, which was free. And to be honest, that website costed probably about $300 to put together. Okay, so the value of that website was about $300. They were charged $10,000. They cannot sue web development company because they agreed to that price. So they cannot go back and ask for their refund. Just saying, so you're aware of what's happening here with prices. Priced by an hour. Another complex problem with price by hour is that you cannot verify it. We cannot double check on that. On the market, it is very common for web developers to work on something and actually write that they worked 4 hours if they're going to get paid a little bit per hour, and if they're going to get paid a lot more per hour, then the work will be completed faster. I think that's stealing, but it happens way more often than you think, and to be honest, there's no way to verify it unless that person is sitting there in the cubicle behind you and you're looking over their shoulder. So cannot be verified. Price by contract, and actually even then, if that person is sitting in the cubicle next to you, still would probably not know what they're doing. They might as well be scripting a program for somebody else. Price by contract. So there's a lot of what I said treacherous conditions. The reason why there's a lot of treacherous conditions because there's terms and conditions and agreements and a lot that gets involved here, because you've got to outline everything in as much detail as possible. How many revisions, what is considered to be a revision, how much time spent on a revision, how do you verify that this much time was spent on a revision? I mean, it becomes very, very complicated to price by contract. So loose contracts or loose agreements without any specific concrete conditions is what's most commonly used on the web development market. So you would get a web developer that will say, hey, I can build this website for $3,000 and you pay me $50 upfront, we'll get started, and here's a link to our terms of service. So their terms of service will cover everything basically. So that's the contract that you're signing up for, and it's a loose agreement on a website price, really, to get your money there and for the work to start. So this is what commonly is done in the industry. But again, you're bound by the terms of service that is on the developer's website. You might not know that you're signing up for those terms of service. You might not know that they exist, but they do, and they apply to you. Okay, so check the quality of work, near impossible. Again, this is another problem. Unless you're a web developer, you wouldn't be looking for a web developer. But if you're not a web developer, you will not be able to check the quality of work. Again, this is trust your web developer, and if your developer is good, guard them and honor them and give them tips, because they are going to be they can make a lot of good things for a business, or they can screw up a lot as well. Cross-check with another development company will likely get you more lost than you started from. Because of the fierce competition between web development agencies that we talked about previously, by cross-checking the work with another web development company, they will find every single thing that went wrong, or can go wrong, or will go wrong, or they will make things up. So it's going to get you lost. It will probably get you more lost than where you originally started from. Okay, so budget by breaking down project into small intervals and retain ownership of each project. So this is your budget for success. This is the way that you can be successful and overcome a lot of the obstacles that you see here. Wireframing, UX, UI stage. So before we start on a website, it's a good idea to do like a block diagram of what the website will look like. It can be black and white, it can be done by hand, it can be, you can use Visual Studio for that. It can be a flowchart, but a wireframe, UX, UI diagram of what it's going to look like. So I would say it's 1/4 of the budget, and you would pay that amount of money, and you will ask a developer to give you this, and you own it. Have it in an agreement that you will own what you paid for. So if they've done this, you own this section. Then the graphic design. So 1/4 of the budget will go towards graphic design. So now you've used half of the budget for graphic design and laying things out. Ask for the files, ask for the original files. You paid for them, keep them. The final step is the actual development. Here things become complicated, because even if you ask for the ownership of web development items, you're still bound by terms of service, you're still bound by plugins that they use, the licenses that they use. You cannot get around it, but basically as soon as you get the website, ask for the export files. so you have the files that you can restore your website from. For larger projects, break it down into smaller sections and request script exports for each stage. Maintenance and script location, robust here, because this is what's going to make your website robust. Why do you need to maintain a website in the first place? Again, things have changed. Previously we had just basic HTML websites. Now we have builders, we've got do-it-yourself themes, we've got a lot of things. So you need to make sure that your website is moving along with the web development world, because if it's not, if it's stagnated, it's going to go bad really fast. It can disintegrate on you in about a year if you don't touch it. So the world is very fluid. Scripts really change fast right now. So there's scripts, there's programs, there's plugins, there's WordPress, templates, themes, everything, all of those things, and there's a lot more that keeps changing. So maintenance is important to make sure that all of those things get updated and get maintained on a regular basis. Maintenance is about well, anywhere from $45 to $850, and the standard price is $150 per month. Maintenance is, I wouldn't say it's expensive. If your business is not generating enough money, if it's not generating $150 per month, there's something really wrong with your business. You've got to reevaluate your marketing strategy. So it's not expensive, but it needs to happen. Without maintenance, websites fail, unless the website is HTML or bare bones PHP. HTML websites are extremely robust. They do not require any maintenance really, because there's nothing to break. Bare bones PHP is almost like HTML, which has just a few lines of PHP, and also impossible to break really. So if you want something that's maintenance free, consider these two options. There's no builders, there's no nothing. It's just a little bit of scripting. So maintenance once a month is ample. And in terms of what kind of maintenance, what is the proper maintenance, is a very large topic. Altogether, we can spend 1 hour talking about it, but PHP has to be maintained. The reason why I have PHP bolded here is because PHP usually is not maintained by majority of web development agencies that provide maintenance, because it's difficult to maintain PHP. Every time that you go through PHP upgrade, a lot of things break. So they just keep one stagnated version of PHP that never changes. And then whenever they have to go to a higher PHP version, they will ask you to find another developer. There's also script releases that we talked about here, and there's also needs to be a backup methodology. And two methodologies is important because if the website has not been maintained properly, one methodology to bring your website back to life might not work. All right, so cost of maintenance is anywhere from $45 to $850. $850 is really for e-commerce websites, something that actually generates quite a bit of traffic. $45 is for your extremely basic HTML, extremely basic WordPress single-page website, but even that is a little bit on the low side. I would say $60. That would be more reasonable. Avoid managed website plans. A whole another topic. It's a big can of worms, but basically there's a lot of plans online that provide you with managed WordPress plans. A lot of companies are offering those. What they basically do is they restrict your access to areas of the website where you can tweak something and break it, basically. But most commonly what they do not do is they do not maintain PHP. They do not go through proper updates of plugins. a website goes bad, it crashes, nobody's responsible, and it's in their fine print of the terms and services that you would agree to, but you probably never knew that you agreed to those terms and services. And there's nobody to held responsible for that. Your website goes down, it's basically wiped off the face of the earth, and typically there's not even a backup, because they would usually sell backup as a separate product altogether that you probably never knew existed. So not a good idea. And even to restore this website usually becomes difficult to impossible, because managed restricts us from going into the actual scripting. So we cannot bring the website back to life, even if we wanted to. Responsive and trusted developer is your main line of defense. Again, it comes back to the trust thing with the developer. So, timeline for web development. Anything that less than 3 days, if you're asking how long will it take to develop a website, if somebody tells you it's 3 days, they're basically using the template, copy and paste very fast. You're probably going to get something that looks identical, carbon copy to your neighbor. Anything over 3 months must be a complex project, or there is a problem with a developer not doing their work correctly. So ideal time for generic website is about 2 weeks. This is on a fast term. A month would be a reasonable amount of time. And mentioned here again, the path to perfection is path to bankruptcy. Don't waste your time on revisions and changes. It's not going to bring you any money. What will bring you money is a process where you actually are going and you're doing your business. Don't get stuck on the website. Follow and trust your web developer and the graphic designer. As long as it looks good, then it will be able to generate money if you market it properly. I've seen really bad websites generating a lot of income because they've got marketing set up correctly. This is our last slide, and I just want to share this map to success because we've covered a lot of grounds here, a lot of topics really fast. So we're going to bring all of this together. Understanding your target audience and your project is really important for you to get started, because you need to understand what your product is, how it's different from your competitors, and you need to understand what your audience is and where they're located. You need to develop a good marketing plan to go after your target audience. My recommendation is to create a mini landing page to test your marketing and product. Estimate return on estimate, or more correctly measure return on investment and strategy, because you need to make sure that you are getting positive ROI. Evaluate and reevaluate it until you get positive ROI. So this would cost you $850 plus marketing fees. I would say max $3,000 to try out to sell your product online. And if you're getting positive return on investment, excellent, then you've got a business. Then build a website. Don't build a website and spend thousands of dollars and then figure out that nothing's working. Develop business structure. So before you're actually going to start building website, once you have positive return on investment, you've got business, you know you're going to be successful. Don't jump into it. Again, this is really business consulting side of things, but people jump real fast once they get return on investment into building website, and then they're going to be rebuilding their website multiple times over, and they're going to waste a ton of money. Develop business structure first. Client management system, accounting, growth strategy, talent acquisition strategy, terms of service, brand identity, funnels and follow-up systems. All of this has to be set up first before you're going to be jumping into website building. Ensure your own accounts, you own your accounts. So domains, hosting, etc. We talked about ownership. Create a website that will become a central tool to meet your business needs. Now, here's where we're actually building a website. It's not the first thing, it's the last thing. Ensure you still own your accounts and licenses. Remember how crazy the web development process is? So once you're finished, make sure that you own all of the accounts and licenses once you finish the web development process. Have proper backup and maintenance plan in place. Again, it comes back to the developer trust. Remember, at the end of the day, you are responsible for everything in your business. I cannot stress this enough, that you are responsible for everything in your business, and that comes down to web development. And if your website is the only way for you to generate money, everything goes through your website, and your website is your lead generation tool. It's also your marketing tool, and it could be your CRM as well. You need to understand that time might come when everything will fail and you will lose it. So it's under your responsibility to make sure that you have the proper tools and methodologies to get everything back on track and working. I've seen businesses go bankrupt because of that. Make sure you're not one of those. All right, and I guess the cherry on the cake here is something for you to explore. U.S. government is a really interesting organization, and they have created a mandate that every website needs to be ADA compliant. So I'm going to leave this one up to you to look into and do your own research on ADA compliance for websites. It's really interesting. There's a couple of ways how we can make a website ADA compliant. One is by pretty much rebuilding it. The other way is to use a plugin that we signed up for, and we have actually a license to. We're basically a distributor of that plugin. We have a developer's account with them. So look into ADA compliance for websites. This is a very, very interesting topic that has come up lately, and majority of websites are not compliant, and there's huge lawsuits that are happening all over the countries. The lawsuits are actually on the rise, and I know personally quite a few businesses that have been impacted by this, and they lost thousands of dollars because their website was not ADA compliant. Alright, so that concludes our presentation. Hopefully it was productive, it was interesting. We covered a lot of different topics. You now understand the how to build a website with purpose in mind. Purpose of the website, the ownership, the budget and the timeline, and a lot of other things that we talked in this presentation. Probably it was one of the most complete presentations you've seen online. Hopefully that was the case. If that's the case, please put a like there, hit a like button, subscribe to our channel. That really helps. But what helps us even more, if you can share this video with as many other business owners as you possibly can. Put it up on your Facebook account, share it in Facebook groups. If you have a business, put it up on your business page. This information needs to be available to everybody, and there is a reason why I'm not screaming out loud in the beginning and in the end and on every single page about our business, because I want this presentation to be available to every single person that might need this information. There's a lot of deception happening in web development world, so I don't want my branding of my website to tarnish the authenticity of this presentation. Just for the record, for those of you who are interested who I am and what I do, this is my website, this is my business. We do web development, and obviously if you want to reach out, feel free to reach out to me. This is my direct number right here. You can give me a phone call. I'll be more than happy to answer your questions. All right, so that would conclude our presentation. If you have any questions, as I mentioned before, feel free to reach out and I'll be more than happy to help you with your web development needs. Thank you.